Today let's examine one of the top reasons as to how people develop the Peter Pan syndrome. Now, normally this syndrome is associated with men as to why they never really grow up. They're always childish and sort of immature. But in today's video, I'm talking about both men and women because we're going to talk about the source of this in a second. So this is important because people may know about the Peter Pan syndrome and even complain about it, but we have to look at the underlying cause. And if you're a victim of emotional incest and you haven't done any therapeutic work on this in your life, maybe you're not even aware of it. You just know on some level you suffer in your life. You suffer perhaps in relationships or keeping friends or maintaining a stable job. You know that's going on, but you haven't labeled it as such that you've been emotionally smothered growing up. There's a price to be paid for this. And so hence it may show up in your adult life as the Peter Pan syndrome, which is commonly known under this term ever since the book came out years ago. And I think it's helpful to be able to place it where it belongs, so to speak. So if we can understand the root cause, then we can begin turning our life around because we know what's going on. We can name it for what it is. Kids who grow up this way never had parents really be transparent in the household and just shine a spotlight on the truth, right? Everything was a bit hidden. There were veils over many things, so to speak. And that's because one of the parents, if not both, were using the children. So of course there's no transparency. Typically the symptoms include a lack of financial responsibility, acting like a child even though they're a grown man or woman, just sort of floating through life maybe. Always feeling like they're the little boy or little girl in situations even though they may be a 50-year-old man or 50-year-old woman. Quite often having fantasies, long shot dreams, things that rarely can come true, but in a fantasy way they're thinking they're going to make it somehow come true. They could be a bit commitment phobic because to commit to a committed relationship means you have to grow up and take responsibility, right? So they may run from that. They may rarely think anything's really their fault. It's just the way it is. It's so aggravating, isn't it? Not looking at their part into how they've contributed to this somehow. But I think the root cause of this and to how all of this gets started is typically because a son or daughter is a victim of emotional incest. Now, I've done a lot of videos on this topic. You can look at some of my other videos. I'll have some links in the description box below. But in a nutshell, it's when a parent emotionally takes over a son or daughter for their own emotional benefit. Maybe they feel alone in the marriage. Maybe it's a single mom or a single father. It's just simply easier to manipulate a child, so they use the child and they could tell them all of their adult problems, treat them like a little mini husband or mini wife, rely on them like you would rely on a husband or wife, right? And there's many more. And when a kid is raised like this, it's hard for them to grow up because they're developmentally thwarted. Their role is to typically just always please the parent, be there for somebody else, walking on eggshells, right? So then they can't really mature in healthy ways where they can be a high-functioning adult and act like an adult in the world. They haven't learned this because their own parents kept them from finding their wings and growing up in this way. So by calling out the Peter Pan syndrome for what it really is, in this case, the emotional incest, we can understand the source, we can go get some therapeutic help, we can begin behaviorally turning our life around, and with the behavioral changes, we can work on the emotions that come up, where maybe we even want to cling to the old version of ourselves because it's familiar and we feel safe. Somehow when we're the little boy or little girl, it's just an easier way to go through life. Or we may feel guilty because we're actually growing up and our parents didn't want us to grow up, so we're coming out of those messages that we got, almost like a form of brainwashing, right? So when we can put all this together, we can indeed start to grow up and say so long to Peter Pan. So I hope this is helpful for some of you who maybe have wondered what the Peter Pan syndrome is all about or where it comes from. Please leave me some comments below. If you have any thoughts about this topic, please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.